we can go ahead and get started as people continue to join. I will just really quickly introduce myself. I think I'm a new face for most folks on the call. My name is Darcy Pittman. I am a content producer with the NetApp on NetApp program, the program that puts on these partner webinars, where we are all about talking about how NetApp IT uses our own products to help run the NetApp organization. And super thankful to have David Tanigawa here with us today. He's one of our go-to experts, and he is a senior storage engineer at NetApp IT, responsible for lifecycle management, data protection, and operational procedures. So just as a quick overview, feel free to put questions in the chat at any time, or even take yourself off mute if you are comfortable. We'll be stopping for questions a few times throughout the presentation. We want to make this as valuable as we can for you. So if you have specific questions, please let us know. Very open to that. And otherwise, I think that's kind of the gist. I am going to be the host moving forward, just so you're aware. And we do these on a monthly basis about a number of different topics. So really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be here. And let's go ahead and get started. So Dave, you want to kick us off?
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our discussion on ONTAP data backup and recovery. Just taking a look at our agenda for this discussion. I'll talk briefly about cyber resilience. We'll talk about snapshots and SnapMirror, which are really the bread and butter in terms of ONTAP native data protection and replication capabilities. We'll touch on a few other NetApp data protection technologies that we use within NetApp IT. We'll talk about the NetApp solution for ransomware, and then we'll summarize with a few key takeaways. So a little bit about me. My name is David Tanigawa. I've been with NetApp for 15 years now, starting out as a technical support engineer before joining NetApp IT, and helping now to engineer and architect our storage solutions. So setting the stage for our discussion today, we want, of course, reliable data protection, but at the same time, we need effective data security. So as we share NetApp IT's story of our implementation of data protection technologies, we hope this will help you consider possibly some creative ways to solve challenges you may be facing, or some other improvements you may want to make in your environment. So in terms of cyber resilience, there's several components to that. So there's disaster recovery, or protecting against data loss, preserving data for long periods of time, business continuity or high availability. And then in terms of data security, it's really the combination of security technologies and solutions that we implement to address ransomware, zero trust, encryption, certification, compliance, and so forth.
So I'll just jump in really quick and ask a question here, Dave. So, looking at that slide, there's a lot going on. Where did we get started at NetApp IT in our data protection journey for those who may be earlier on in the process than we are? What kind of recommendations do you have for those early on in the journey?
So for us, it was a combination. It started out as a combination of making sure we have local snapshots, and then we were committed to snap mirroring our data to an offsite destination for data protection. In terms of our SOX archives, we initially were using NetBackup and writing that data to tapes, and then when AltaVault became available, we used NetBackup to write to AltaVault, and we had a storage grid backend for that. But now what we're doing is we're just simply snap vaulting from our backup environment to an archive cluster that's protected with SnapLock Enterprise for our SOX data. So it's been an evolution over time. We also recently added a fan out environment from our primary production clusters to a local Snap Vault cluster protected by SnapLock compliance, to protect that data against malicious actions. So yeah, it's been an evolution over time, and we just keep refining and modifying as we go.
Just a quick question. Is everyone able to go ahead and see the slides? I think we have one person who is maybe having trouble. Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes, but feel free to let us know if there's any trouble.
So whether we're using SnapMirror, SnapCenter, FlexClone, SVM disaster recovery, SnapLock, or other data replication or archive solutions, at the heart of it all is NetApp's ONTAP snapshot technology. One of the foundational innovations of ONTAP from many years ago was the Write Anywhere file layout, or WAFL. WAFL uses metadata to point to data blocks on disk. And when we update data, we don't overwrite existing blocks, but the updated data is written to new blocks. And then we update our metadata to point to the right combination of old data blocks and new data blocks that represent the active file system. So when we take ONTAP snapshots, we reference that metadata when creating a snapshot copy rather than copying data blocks. And we only record incremental changes since the last snapshot copy. Those things make ONTAP snapshots particularly efficient when compared to other data protection technologies. Snapshot restores can be done rapidly, giving us an exceptional recovery time objective. And since we can capture more than 2 million snapshots on a single controller, we can capture frequent snapshots to meet recovery point objectives as well. NetApp IT uses an Ansible playbook that runs periodically throughout our environment to ensure that our standard snapshot policy is configured for all volumes. Our local snapshots are our first line of defense in terms of data protection. Then we use SnapLock Enterprise to protect our SOX data archives from accidental deletion, and we use SnapLock compliance to protect our most critical data sets from malicious actions. It's worth mentioning also that starting with ONTAP 9.12.1, we also now have the capability to do snapshot locking to protect snapshots from accidental or malicious deletion. This gives us the ability to protect snapshots on both primary and secondary systems. So having both local and remote backups is an industry best practice in terms of ransomware remediation. SnapMirror allows us to replicate snapshots either locally or to a remote system. Asynchronous SnapMirror gives us scheduled updates, and that's typically used for backup and archive purposes, while synchronous SnapMirror provides real-time updates, and that's typically used for disaster recovery purposes. As far as NetApp IT is concerned, when we're migrating volumes, we'll typically use SnapMirror with an async mirror policy type. After updating that relationship, we can break it off. We can continue serving data from the destination volume. The destination becomes read-write. The destination volume in those cases with an async mirror policy type is a mirror of the source. So if good snapshots are deleted on the source volume, the next SnapMirror update will delete them from the destination. So in terms of data protection and archiving, it's recommended to use a mirror vault or vault SnapMirror policy type, because in those cases, the SnapMirror policy determines the number of snapshots that are retained on the destination, regardless of how many snapshots we have on the source. In terms of ransomware, if we're using one of those policies, if snapshots are deleted on the source, they won't immediately be deleted on the destination with the next SnapMirror update. It can buy us additional time to discover a ransomware attack, and that can also help ensure that we have sufficient snapshots for recovery. NetApp IT uses async SnapMirror with a vault policy type and daily updates for protection of our production data. And since we have SnapLock configured on vault destinations, those destination volumes are already read-only, and there's no need to explicitly commit snapshots to worm versus using SnapLock on a read-write volume. Some other data protection technologies that we use within NetApp IT, Snap Center helps us create application consistent backups to ensure that data in memory and data that is pending I/O operations are flushed to disk in the correct transactional order, minimizing our recovery steps. And then Snap Center is also configured to update our SnapMirror data protection relationships. Within NetApp IT, we primarily use Snap Center for Microsoft SQL Server and VMware data stores, but there are a number of other plugins available for other data types. FlexClone allows us to create writable point-in-time copies of a parent FlexVol volume. It's based on a snapshot that you can specify. FlexClones are space efficient because they share FlexClone volumes, share data blocks with the parent FlexVol volume for data they have in common. Within NetApp IT, we'll commonly use FlexClones to clone database instances. So in some cases, we'll clone subprod instances from our production data for testing and development, or we'll create side instances from our production data for reporting purposes. We've also used FlexClone to do some troubleshooting and testing. So we've used it to test the data fix without impacting our primary production data. And we've also used it to troubleshoot data access issues and to test the impact of ACL changes. SVM disaster recovery, or SVMDR, allows us to create data protection relationships between SVMs. So it allows us to replicate the SVM data as well as the SVM configurations, including things like NFS exports, SMB shares, RBAC. The idea being that we can then serve data from the SVMDR destination. NetApp IT specifically uses SVMDR for data protection of our on-prem Kubernetes SVMs because it interoperates well with Astra Trident. Newly provisioned volumes are automatically protected, and protection relationships for deprovisioned volumes are automatically cleaned up. So in terms of ransomware, NetApp recommends a layered defense approach. ONTAP Autonomous Ransomware Protection, or ARP, is available starting in ONTAP 9.10.1. It detects ransomware based on volume workload and data entropy changes, where data entropy is a measure of randomness of data within a file. ARP automatically takes additional snapshots if an attack is suspected. It's enabled on a per volume basis. It's initially enabled in learning mode. Before ONTAP 9.13.1, it was recommended to run learning mode for 30 days so that ARP could determine baseline volume behaviors before switching to active mode. The idea being that 30 days helps us minimize false positives. Starting with ONTAP 9.13.1, ARP determines the optimal learning period and automatically switches from learning mode to active mode. In ONTAP 9.11.1, we can modify parameters for ransomware detection to further improve the accuracy of reporting based on specific volume workloads. And we can also control the number of and the retention period for ARP snapshots, starting with 9.11.1. NetApp IT has done some initial testing with ARP. There is a recommended volume limit for read or write intensive workloads. So we want to make sure that we prioritize the most critical volumes and better understand the performance impact before we deploy this across our enterprise. F-Policy is NetApp's zero trust engine for monitoring and managing file access over NFS or SMB. It's been part of ONTAP for over a decade. Zero trust is the idea that we never trust but always verify. So just because a user has permission to access a file doesn't mean they necessarily should have permission to change it. In native mode, we can do blacklisting and whitelisting of file extensions. The original intent was that we could block unwanted files from being stored on enterprise storage. But we can also use that capability to block known ransomware file extensions. In external mode, we have the same capabilities as native mode, but external mode also detects different and more advanced forms of ransomware than ARP. Using user and entity behavior analytics, we can stop zero-day ransomware attacks, which are known vulnerabilities with no available patch. Cloud Insights with Cloud Secure is NetApp's own external F-policy solution. It's SaaS infrastructure and service monitoring solution, which works for on-premises, private cloud, and public cloud environments, including AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Cloud Secure is a feature in Cloud Insights, which analyzes data access patterns to identify risks from ransomware attacks. It allows us to audit actions and activities on critical data and can take automatic actions, including sending alerts, taking a snapshot when an attack is suspected, reporting or denying access in the event a user is suspected of encrypting files or deviating from their normal patterns. NetApp IT has used Cloud Insights regularly, mostly for reporting purposes at this time. A couple of years ago, we did some early testing with Cloud Secure, but at that time, our organization didn't really have a well-defined security response team or process to respond to security alerts. So we shut down, we shut down our collectors and put that effort on the back burner. We were then asked to enable native ONTAP file access auditing for some of our critical data sets to give us some visibility into user activity. But the resource demands and the ACL requirements that are involved in configuring that are not ideal for an enterprise-wide deployment. So we'll be revisiting Cloud Secure for the additional ransomware protection that it will provide for our overall environment. Cloud Backup with Data Lock integrates the worm or write once, read many capabilities of a cloud provider's object storage with Cloud Backup to lock backup data as worm in the destination storage service. It effectively gives us snap lock protection on object storage in the cloud or on premises with StorageGrid. We can also replicate snap lock protected volumes to destination object storage that has also been enabled for worm. NetApp IT is not currently using this because we have our backup infrastructure established on site, but it's something we may consider in the future. As far as anomalous and intuitive indicators, the rate of data change can be an indicator of a ransomware attack. So we can configure ActiveIQ Unified Manager to monitor and alert on metrics, including abnormal volume growth rate, snapshot reserve usage, and abnormal storage efficiency. ActiveIQ and System Manager also can help us identify best practice gaps in terms of security or ransomware. NetApp IT relies on ActiveIQ Unified Manager for monitoring and alerting of our on-prem and CVO instances. And we also regularly review and address AIQ and System Manager best practice gaps. We talked about snapshots and SnapMirror. I'll talk a little bit about SnapLock. SnapLock is our high-performance compliance solution, provides write once, read many, or worm protection for retained data. It's designed to prevent deletion, change, or renaming of data for regulatory compliance purposes, and also to ensure that critical data can be recovered seamlessly after a malicious event to prevent operational impacts, loss of revenue or reputation, and expensive recovery. It's fully integrated into ONTAP. SnapLock protection is available in two different modes. SnapLock Enterprise is the trusted admin model. There's a privilege delete capability, and actions are logged. SnapLock Compliance is the untrusted admin model, where all user and admin ops are protected. In terms of protecting data against malicious actions, SnapLock compliance, the stricter of the two modes is the right choice. Committed volumes cannot be altered or deleted during the retention period, even by an administrator.
Hey, so we got a great question in the chat, which is, are you using BlueXP backup and restore? So you want to answer that while we're on the slide?
So we are using BlueXP. As far as SnapMirror between our on-prem and our cloud instances, we're primarily using BlueXP to help manage that. Our data in the cloud, we typically we have some CVO in Azure and AWS, and we use Amazon FSx for ONTAP as well. And since ONTAP is the foundation for all of that, we can use SnapMirror to migrate data between our cloud instances, as well as between our on-premise data centers and our cloud instances. Our data in the cloud, CVO data, we use cloud backup service, and then we use AWS backup for FSxN.
Great, thanks for that.
All right, so a few key takeaways. NetApp IT has found that our own technologies are sufficient for our own ONTAP data protection, archiving, and data security needs. Whether we're using FlexClone for testing or troubleshooting, SVMDR for protection of our Kubernetes data that's provisioned by Astra Trident, or other things, we see opportunities to creatively use some NetApp data protection technologies to address some unique challenges and use cases. And NetApp data protection technologies and other tools should be considered as part of the layered defense approach to protect data from ransomware and other threats. So I'm happy to take any other questions we may have at this time.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Feel free to put questions in the chat or the Q&A section while we're waiting for that. If anyone has any, I will just go ahead and ask. One question that I have is, so say I want to use the cloud for disaster recovery. Can I use SnapMirror for replicating data on-prem to a cloud provider if I'm using NetApp technology in the cloud?
Absolutely. Since ONTAP is the foundation for all of that, on premises as well as in the cloud offerings that we have, we can certainly use SnapMirror to set up DR to replicate data in and out of the cloud.
Fantastic. That's great. That's great. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming in right at this moment, but feel free to put those in. I think we can hit on the next slide, and then if there's any more questions, we can touch on those. But just some places that you can connect with the NetApp on NetApp program and NetApp IT. So we do have a website where we talk about lots of different use cases and touch on some little how-tos, know-hows about NetApp products. So that's netappit.com. And a lot of our content also lives on our NetApp on NetApp YouTube channel. You can just type that into YouTube and you should be able to find us. If you have any questions at any time, suggestions for future webinars you'd like to see, that would be helpful. You want to reach out and talk one-on-one with a NetApp IT expert, you can always reach us at that email, netappit@netapp.com. And a great person to follow, our little micro influencer from NetApp on NetApp, is my manager, Matt Brown. So go ahead and follow him on LinkedIn if you're interested to see content from us on a regular basis on LinkedIn related to a lot of our use cases and products and, the happenings at NetApp. Great resource there as well. And let's see, I think we did get, one more question in the chat. Will we get copies of the slides? Dave, is that something we can share? Do you know?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And I think that is pretty much what we have for you all today. So Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dave, for your time. Really appreciate you. You have a busy, demanding job, and I know our partners can always benefit to learn from what we're doing in our own IT shop and what they can share with the people that they work with. It's so great that we have this program, and happy to be leading webinars moving forward. So like I said, let us know if you have any requests for future webinars. Make sure to connect, and I think that's about it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. All right. Take care and hope to see you next time.
Take care. Bye.